Welcome to PANC Live. My name is Dr. Frank Pittman, and I am the Executive Director of the Piano Academy in North Carolina and your host for PANC Live. PANC Live is being broadcast from the teaching studios at the Piano Academy in North Carolina in South Durham. The Piano Academy now teaches all lessons online. Our students range from 5 to 80, and we teach beginners all the way through the most advanced. My esteemed colleague, Dr. Elizabeth Davis, specializes in teaching early music and keyboard training in both individual lessons and classroom environments. Her specialties are in teaching piano to adult learners as well as to individuals with special needs, including ADHD and ASD. This is the third episode of PANC Live. There might be some technical issues along the way, who knows, but please be patient if they do occur. Feel free to type in questions or make comments during the show. Just type your comments below. We will try to address as many as we can. We're keeping monitors going across. All right, so today's guests are Margaret Louise Norwood, who teaches in Charlotte, North Carolina, and Jan Herboth, who teaches in Chapel Hill. Margaret Louise Norwood is president of the Charlotte Piano Teachers Association. My privilege to welcome Margaret Louise. Hi, Margaret Louise. We got to unmute you.
Good morning, Frank.
Good morning. How are you doing? Bright and early.
Doing very well. Thank you.
Nice. Well, it's a pleasure to see you. So tell us a little bit about your musical background and training.
Of course, I was playing the piano probably almost before I was born. Both of my parents were very, very fine amateur pianists. So it was almost a given that piano was going to be a big part of my life. So I started lessons when I was very young. In fact, my mother was my first teacher until I think at about age 4, I decided I didn't like sharing the bench with her. And as a lovely 4-year-old, pushed her off the bench. She lands on the floor. And so that was when it was time to find me another teacher.
Well, that's really nice. Well, tell us a little bit more. I mean, you of course, you studied piano all the way through your, early years into high school, and then you went to college. Can you tell us a little bit more about your post-high school training?
Sure. Well, even, in high school, I attended Brevard Music Center for 4 summers, and there worked with duo pianists, Joan Yarborough and Robert Cowan. So that was, a wonderful, wonderful 4 summers worth of experience because, as you probably know, Brevard is a long season. It's a 6-week summer thing. So again, with young pianists, both high school and college and beyond, there for 6 weeks, not just pianists, but, all of the orchestral instruments plus singers. They have a large opera endeavor there as well. So beautiful musical training and exposure. Then starting college, I went to Chapel Hill. I studied with Marvin Blickenstaff, which we all know, who we all know is a great pedagogy influence here in the U.S. When Mr. Blickenstaff left Chapel Hill, I also decided to leave Chapel Hill just because I wanted a different viewpoint at that time.
Sure.
So I went to University of Montevallo in Alabama to continue my studies with Robert Cowan of the duo piano team. Finished my bachelor's there, went to University of Southern California for my master's degree. Enjoyed studying with Adrian Ruiz out there, as well as with Robert Ward. One of my theory teachers there was composer Morton Lauridsen, who was very influential on my taste in modern American music being written at the time. After graduate school, I was still looking for somebody else to study with. And I was preparing for lots of international competitions. So in Charlotte, I was asking around, who might I, engage as a coach? And Walter Hautzig's name came up. So I contacted him. He looked over my resume and my aspirations and decided to take me on as a private student. So at that point, I started traveling from Charlotte to New York to see him probably about once every 3 or 4 weeks.
Wow. Wow.
A lot
that.
of commuting, a lot of commuting. And then a couple of years into that relationship with Mr. Hautzig, I went to his 6-week summer residency at University of Hartford, which is where you and I met.
Yes.
And
yes.
I continued that 6-week thing until 1989 was his last summer to hold the program there. He moved to Winthrop University here nearby in Rock Hill, South Carolina. Mm-hmm. And I continued, working with him each summer there, as did you.
Yes, absolutely.
And continued studying with him, again, moving back and forth, traveling to New York, some of the good old days when we could get a plane ticket from here to there for $79.
Those days are long gone, right?
Yes, we wish those days were still with us.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's kind of the thing, as and I know we'll probably talk about this more later, but one of the things I find really vital for me as a professional musician is I'm always wanting somebody else's opinion.
Yeah.
When it's good to satisfy oneself, but if there's someone else whose ears you trust and revere, then it's nice to kind of have things checked out once in a while, almost like going to the doctor for your physical.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, tell us a little bit about your teaching. Now, you've been teaching in Charlotte for some time. How long have you been teaching there?
A very frightening 40 years. I just looked at the calendar not too long ago. Someone else had asked me that question recently. And I said, geez, I've been here since the fall of 1980. So indeed, this is my 40th year of teaching here in Charlotte. It's been very, very rewarding. My studio has students from ages 5 and 6 up to people in their mid 80s.
Yeah, absolutely.
My kind of specialty is the more advanced students, high school students, young professionals now seeking coaching from me. It's kind of hard for me to say, wow, you've reached that plateau where somebody really wants your opinion too, but yeah. I'm getting there.
Yeah. Well, I will share with everyone that, our friendship began back in the early 80s at the Hartford master classes with Mr. Walter Hautzig. But you've been my good colleague and especially a good friend during all of that time. And when I first started teaching, I looked to you. You were my rock. And I'm gonna get a little teary-eyed here all of a sudden, but you were so helpful in helping me establish the business side of running a studio successfully. You helped with, creating the policies that I still use to this day. So, your friendship has always meant a lot to me. And in addition to just our friendship, we also belong to many professional music organizations. And I know that you're very active in local and state and even national music organizations. Would you share with us some of the ones in which you are most actively involved?
Okay, well, just to clarify, in your intro, you said that I was president of Charlotte Piano Teachers Association. That doesn't exist. I'm president of Charlotte Music Teachers Association, which is
sorry about that.
That's okay. It's a common mistake around here. But Charlotte Music Teachers Association is indeed the local affiliate of North Carolina Music Teachers Association and Music Teachers National Association. But because we have Charlotte Piano Teachers Forum, that is by far the more venerable organization locally. It has been here since 1953, and I'm very active there as well, chairman of several committees. CPTF has its own monthly meetings. It offers student recitals, scholarship auditions in both solo piano and piano concerto. Since that organization had been here in place for a very long time before Charlotte Music Teachers Association came to be, Charlotte Music Teachers decided that it was not going to have the monthly meetings the way the other organization does. So we focus on student-oriented events, and our big thing running currently is our celebration of musical creativity. In other words, does a Beethoven live in Charlotte? So we have, students. Could be, you never know. And so some years we find that we do have exceedingly gifted young composers who then go on to be, published. So all good.
Yeah. Well, many of these organizations that I know that we both belong to offer different credentials of achievement and recognition. In the introduction, I said that, and I hope this was correct, that you were the recipient of the 2015 Teacher of the Year for the North Carolina Music Teachers Association, for the entire state, which is quite an acknowledgement. What other types of credentials do you also hold?
Well, I do hold permanent national certification from Music Teachers National Association. It's, and you do as well. Thank you. And there they are. It's quite the process. Becoming certified through MTNA, the process has changed dramatically over the last at least 2 decades anyway. One of my friends who is a college professor looked at the portfolio that I sent to MTNA as part of that process, and he said, wow, that looks even more detailed than the portfolio I submitted to my university when I was applying for tenure. So, everything is documented, where you studied, how you study, how you teach, just all of that. Plus, to reach permanent certification, you have to have just tons of continuing education and professional development. So, that they keep you busy, they keep you on your toes, they keep you accountable for being on the forefront of new things in piano pedagogy and just, what's shaking new in the neighborhood, so to speak. I also hold certification from the Royal Conservatory of Music in Toronto. Again, they have quite the process that teachers go through to achieve their certification. Not only, degrees and professional development, but you have to have students in all of their various exam levels who've achieved very, very high marks in order to be considered for certification. And just like MTNA, that's something that is ongoing, that you're expected to continue producing really good students and doing your own, professional development and ed. So lots of things there, but, people ask, why jump through all those hoops? Well, one of the big benefits for me, in addition to just making sure that I know kind of what's out there, keeping my finger on the pulse of piano pedagogy and musicianship in general, is referrals that we get from these organizations. Because when you reach certification in either of those two organizations, your name goes onto a certain list that when students are looking for new teachers, they look very highly upon, certified teachers, whether it's Royal Conservatory or MTNA. And so I've gotten a lot of students that way over the years.
Well, I also wanted to share with the audience the plaque that you received as the 2015 Teacher of the Year. So I did have that ready to share with individuals. It's quite an accolade, and yeah, I'm a little biased because you're my friend, but you certainly deserve the Teacher of the Year for sure. Well, tell us, there's one thing that, many of us teach piano, but we are often so busy in our lives, as a teacher, with all of the administrative responsibilities that we have, continuing education that we have to have, but you're also a very active pianist. I mean, you are a performer. Would you share some of your experiences in competitions and in performances?
Sure. I spent about a decade of my life as kind of a professional competitor. I was in a long list of all of the major international piano competitions. So I was spending a lot of time, of course, working with Mr. Hautzig, preparing programs, and then, a lot of time traveling back and forth to Europe to participate in these competitions. And it was a most interesting time. I think the first international competition I entered was the CIEM, the International Competition for Musical Performers, in Geneva, Switzerland. So I was able to go and live in Switzerland for a month during the lengthy competition. Lots of fun, lots of heartache, lots of being homesick. It's hard to be in a situation like that. But I was in a hotel where there were other competitors, and of course, that contest has not only piano but other instruments as well. And I was very jealous because the harpists and the violinists could have their instruments in their hotel rooms with them. But those of us who were pianists, we had to commute every day quite a ways to get to the conservatory to practice. Yeah. So, that was one experience. Another was Queen Elizabeth in Brussels, Belgium, and was held in the springtime. And my fondest memory from that, other than, of course, playing in the beautiful concert halls in Brussels at the conservatory, I was staying with a family in Waterloo, and I had arrived, I think, on on Good Friday. And so, first thing, as a guest in this Belgian home, they took me to the backyard where they had all sorts of animals. And it was my job as the guest to pick which rabbit we were going to have for dinner.
Okay.
On
morning.
Easter weekend. So that was a real shockaroo.
Oh, absolutely.
But anyway, beautiful family. They gave me the keys to their Porsche to drive back and forth.
No problem
Yes,
with that.
no problem with that. So, it was a great experience. I got to teach their children because their kids were studying piano. So, and that's a family that I still to this day have contact with.
Well, that's wonderful. I mean, certainly the competition circuit is very demanding, but it's nice to have these wonderful experiences. I do want to take just a little bit of time to just recognize our good friend David Marshall, and he says good morning to us. David and I have collaborated for many years, and so hi, David, if you're still welcome, good morning. All right, so ML, we're on the near the end of our time. So I'd like to talk a little bit about, the fact that you and I share wonderful teacher, Mr. Walter Hautzig. We spent those summers in Hartford. Those master classes were 6 weeks long, I believe, weren't they? 6 weeks?
Yes.
Yeah. And all we did was study piano. Mr. Hautzig was sort of a father figure to all of us and to all of his students who are now teaching all over the world. I mean, he showed us how to practice, how to play, how to learn, how to interpret music, how to listen, how to perform, and most importantly, how to live our lives as pianists. So all of that means that he has left a legacy to us to hand down to students. And I do know that leaving legacies is important to you and as part of your teaching. So tell us why you think leaving a legacy to students is so important.
Well, number one, we are, as performers, representing these composers who have been gone for a long time. So, we have to do our best to translate to our current audience what these guys really wanted from their music. What musical language were they speaking? What, emotional context were they writing with? And I just feel that it is, incumbent upon us as teachers. Hello, Mr. Hautzig. That we pass down this heritage. I mean, as you know, Hautzig's heritage, if we go back generations, he studied with Arthur Schnabel, who studied with Theodore Leschetizky, who studied with Carl Czerny, who studied with Beethoven. So there we are. We're, 5 degrees separated from Beethoven, which really isn't all that long if you think about it. So, it's, all of my teachers, not just Mr. Hautzig, but they all felt very strongly that there were, traditions that needed to be passed down to the future generations of musicians so that we don't lose this connection with the past. Well, it's not that we want to live as dinosaurs in a museum, but we cannot forget our history.
Well, absolutely. The whole idea of playing music is recreating the past. Back in October, I think it was the first show, I invited Annie Jang from UNC Greensboro, and we talked about the living legacies who are among us today, providing lots of music. And it was really important to recognize that there are more than just the 3 Bs, the Bach, Beethoven, Brahms, 4 B's. Bartok, 5 B's. Britain. I mean, but yeah, I agree with you. Having a legacy and handing it down to our students. I'm always telling my students things that Mr. House would say to me in how to learn, how to organize notes, how to practice, how to rethink notes. I mean, he once said to me, "It's not how you think about notes; it's how you rethink them." And I pass that on. And
absolutely,
yeah. So that's one of the gems of studying with such a great man as Mr. Halsey. So, all right. Well, thank you, Emil. We've come to the end of this segment. I hope you'll return. We're going to take a little bit of a break, so you are able to come back shortly, aren't you?
Yes.
Great. We're going to take a very brief break. PANC Live will return with Margaret Louise Norwood and Jan Herboth. Don't go away.
Hello, welcome to the Piano Academy of North Carolina. We specialize in teaching piano to all ages and levels. Our students range in ages from 5 to 70. We teach from the absolute beginner to the most advanced.
Due to the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, we are teaching all lessons online until further notice. You or your child can take lessons in the safety of your own home.
Lessons at home can be fun and enjoyable. Most lessons are taught through Zoom. If you have an electronic piano, then we will show you how to connect your instrument at home with the pianos at the Academy. Because our instruments are connected, what you play is what we hear.
Email us at info@panc.us.
Everyone deserves the joy of music.
Thank you, everyone, for staying. If anyone in Facebook land is interested in taking piano lessons online, then email us at info@panc.us, or you may also email us at piano.academy.nc@gmail.com, and we can set you up with online lessons. PANC Live is a Facebook live show being broadcast from the teaching studios at the Piano Academy of North Carolina in Durham. Remember to write your comments below. We certainly welcome them. We've already had some share with us. Welcome back, Margaret Louise.
Hi.
Hi, good. You turned your mute off. Now, I know that you and our upcoming guest, Jan, have a history as friends and as colleagues. Can you share with us how you and Jan first met and started working together?
Yes, we both were members of Charlotte Piano Teachers Forum, and we served on several committees together. And later we started doing programs for CPTF. We've played duo and duet programs for them. We have participated in piano repertoire overviews for them. So we've just had a lot of fun getting to know each other and playing together from time to time. And that's something that once pandemic is done, hopefully in the next several months, we will be able to do again.
Yeah, that will be nice. Well, I would like to go ahead and welcome Jan. Are you nearby? Hey, Jan.
I am. Good morning, Frank.
Good morning.
Morning, ML.
Hi, Jan.
Well, I just want to let everyone know, Margaret Louise, your name's a little long there.
Sorry.
That's all right. When I first opened the Piano Academy here, I was looking for a piano teacher, and I remember vividly that summer phone call that I gave to you, Margaret Louise, and you said, "Why don't you contact Jan Herboth? She has moved to Chapel Hill." And I did, and Jan and Jan, you and I have worked together. I've asked you to adjudicate several festivals and competitions in the past, but you just freshly moved to Durham. you said, yes, I would be glad to teach students from the Academy. So just want to let people know that we are all friends and colleagues, and it's such delight to have everyone as friends and as colleagues. So Emil, I'm going to bid you adieu. Will you stand by, because I'm going to bring you back towards the end of the show? Excellent. Well, good. Welcome,
fun.
Jan. Thank you for being here. Can you tell us a little bit more about your training as a pianist, including any degrees that you hold?
Yes, like ML, I began studying piano at an early age. When I was 4, my older brother was studying piano, and when he finished practicing his pieces, I would go in behind them and pick them out on the piano, which he quit shortly thereafter, and I began my piano lessons. We were lucky. I'm from Greenville, South Carolina. We were so fortunate at that time to have a wonderful high caliber piano teacher, Ernestine Smith. I studied with her up through my last year of high school. And we also had another treasure in Greenville by the name of Richard Cass. Richard was a wonderful concert artist, right? And at that time was performing all over the world. He was not yet married. He lived in Greenville. And so I had the honor of studying with him at a very young age in the summer times when Richard was regrouping from his concert season. My last year in high school, Ozan Marsh and Patricia Binkman, his wife, became the artist in residence at Converse College. So I went over there. Now, ML touched on this wonderful legacy, reaching back to these historic great pianists of the 20th century. Richard was a student in Paris with Nadia Boulanger, Alfred Cortot. Ozan evidently studied with everybody there was. Okay. Unfortunately, at the time when I studied with him, my main memory is of doing tons of Hanon and Charity with a metronome. So I was really, that's exactly, I was like, I don't think I'm going to go to Converse. Right? And I never graduated from high school. I went to college at the age of 16 after my junior year. So my parents were reluctant to let me go out of state. So I ended up at Furman University for a couple of years with a warm, wonderful teacher, David Gibson there. And finally, I transferred to the University of Louisville, which, like ML, I had also studied at Brevard Music Center in the summer times, but at the time, the artist in residence there was Lee Levisi. Lee Levisi was a student of Rudolf Serkin, who was one of the greats of the 20th century. And in fact, when I was at U of L, I studied the Hammerklavier Sonata, and I have Rudolf Serkin's fingering for the Hammerklavier in my music, which is,
can we talk about that?
Isn't that wonderful? It's like, oh, wow.
Yeah.
After I graduated, I got a Bachelor of Music and Performance from U of L, and then went back home, worked for a year, and went to the Mannes College of Music in New York City, where I began work on a postgraduate artist diploma. And there I was fortunate enough to study with a beautiful person whom ML knows. I know, Lillian Kalir.
Oh, yeah.
She was Claude Frank's wife.
Yeah.
Beautiful artist and a beautiful soul. And she was a student of Vengerova. And so I have Vengerova's fingering for the Chopin D flat major nocturne, which I also treasure. However, I had met my husband, the man who has been my husband for 44 years, I should say, my last year in Louisville. And I had continued to go back and forth from Louisville to Greenville, from New York City to Louisville. And finally, we married. And we married in August. I worked 1 year on my postgraduate artist diploma, married Mark in August. And at the time, he had owned a restaurant in Lexington, Kentucky. So I moved to Lexington and began work on my master's a week later. And I worked with Lucian Stark there. I struggled with him at first I had studied with such charismatic teachers like Mr. Levisi and Miss Collier. Just every lesson you left on a mountaintop. It was just so inspiring, and you were going to those beautiful places in music. And Lucian was a very workmanlike, teacher. And so I struggled with him, but honestly, he was a magnificent teacher. And what he taught me has probably been of more use as far as being able to translate technically into other students. But he would say things like, legato is not a function of the pedal, whatever. These were the kind of comments he would make, and I'm used to like more passion, more this, more that. So my first child was born my second year in graduate school. So he was born in February.
You were busy.
And yes, so I missed 4 classes and went right on, graduated in, May on time, finished up. And then from then on, my life took a different direction.
Yeah. Well, I mentioned earlier that you joined me here at the Piano Academy as a teacher, and I saw, and you were only here for 1 year, but it was quite a substantial year for the students. They learned so much under you. So, a lot of that has to do with your experience as a teacher, and so can you share with us how you began your teaching career?
I began by teaching piano to non-piano music majors at UK as a grad assistant. But while I was at UK, I became good friends with another pianist who was teaching the Suzuki method at that time. And in Lexington, there was a very large, well-established Suzuki program that was affiliated with the university. So when I graduated, I was hired by the Lexington Talent Education Association. They sent me to be trained in Stevens Point, Wisconsin, with Carol Bigler and Valerie Lloyd Watts, who are 2 of the leading Suzuki teachers on this continent. It was actually a wonderful beginning teaching experience. We had the support of the university. Students were required to attend weekly group classes. So we had performing classes every week, and also touched on theory and, music theory games. Strong parental support. There was a parent education program attached to this. So it was altogether a wonderful experience. However, my father, in the meantime, had received a serious cancer diagnosis. So my husband and I picked it up and moved to Greenville. No jobs, no nothing. But I just thought, I just don't like to be so far away from my family. I want to be within an easy drive, So we moved back to Greenville. And I helped start, along with one of my old friends, a Suzuki program in Greenville. And then Mark took a job in Charlotte, and we moved to Charlotte, where we stayed for over 30 years. I continued to teach Suzuki there for quite a few years, but then I began receiving requests to teach students these parents were not really looking for Suzuki. Right. And I don't think I did a good job communicating the rigors, the involvement, the degree of parental involvement, and it rises and falls on, parental home teaching. So gradually I morphed, I had a mix for a while, part traditional, part Suzuki, and then morphed over into just traditional teaching.
Well, no, go ahead.
No, I said I maintained a studio there for 30-something years until I moved to Chapel Hill.
So you mentioned that you started with Suzuki and you moved into a traditional format, which is what I'm trained in as well. How were you able to merge the 2 different, and both of them have its merits for sure, but how was it to balance Suzuki rigors and the traditional teaching methods?
Well, I think the Suzuki method overall has the philosophy behind it has provided the framework, the philosophical framework for my teaching from the beginning. It's a positive approach. It's based on respect for each child, for their unique gifts, their abilities, where they happen to be at the moment. It is a build character first, teach music second. It has colored my whole approach. I go, for instance, when a student plays for me, my first goal is to give them genuine, and I stress genuine positive feedback.
Yeah.
To look for what was right. How can we build on this? How can we take what you did here and put it over on this page? Or, let's see, how can I help you sort through this part right here? Let's come up with ideas. What do we need, to work on here? And as well as the idea that you can't overwhelm students with information. So while they're playing, I am trying to think, what is the one comment I can make that will touch the most bases, that will correct or get us going, what is the one thing I can make? So,
well, I had one teacher once tell me, I've been studying with them. This was in graduate school. And I'm older, more experienced, and I had studied with some wonderful masters in my undergraduate with Duke Miles at UNC Chapel Hill. And Dr. Miles, was really helpful in establishing, know what you're doing right, and then build upon that to make the adjustments that you need. And I go to graduate school, and I'll not say who it is, but I had gotten very frustrated in the lessons because I got this bombardment, this negative, everything was negative, negative, negative. I felt like I was not doing anything correct. And I know that's a tradition in teaching. But I finally looked at him in frustration and I said, so what am I doing right? And he looked at me and said, I don't have time to tell you what you are doing right. So I just, as far as my teaching is concerned, I'm like you. I like to make sure that the foundation of skill sets are laid down, because you need to have that to know how to make the change. Well, speaking of training, I feel so fortunate to talk to two superb piano teachers this morning who have also had careers as performers. Tell me a little bit about your performance background.
I started early. I appeared as soloist of the Greenville Symphony Orchestra when I was 9 years old. From that point, I went on to play solo performances with other orchestras, solo recitals, a lot of collaborative recitals. When I was at the University of Louisville, I was fortunate to work in the violin studio of Paul Kling, who was the concertmaster of the Louisville Orchestra. So I was able, he had a wonderful studio at the time, including David Updegraff, who went on to the Cleveland Institute of Music as head of their violin program, Bela Kais, who's at Boston University. So I had these opportunities to do these beautiful violin piano sonatas and
nice.
Brahms. I performed all three of the Brahms when I was at U of L. Really just a special experiences. One of the things, and I don't know if this was true with you, growing up, there were big, the senior clubs of the National Federation of Music Clubs were very strong.
Yep.
Yes. And they could not afford to pay concert pianists for programs. But so in college, I was lucky enough to pick up, people would call Mr. Levisi, do you have a student? And so I got to play for money, which was great fun. Concerts in Kentucky. Of course, I did some in Greenville and around in South Carolina, even far as away as Virginia. I went on to continue solo and collaborative work after graduate school until I had 2 more children. And then my life took a different and wonderful direction, which is still taking today. We moved to Chapel Hill to be closer to our children, and now I have the joy of seeing my grandchildren.
Well, that is
playing
so
with
beautiful.
Them. So,
well, in addition to your performing, that you just mentioned, and teaching, a little birdie once said to me that you had some experience being an accompanist for ballet. Tell us a little bit about that experience.
Really, I had forgotten because since I've moved, I haven't done any ballet accompanying. I did some of this when I was at the University of Louisville, because they had a ballet program which used live music. So I had some of this experience. And then my daughter was a lovely dancer, and she was studying in Charlotte in a studio that used the Royal Academy of Dance syllabus, and they required live music for all their examinations, their children's exams as well as their vocational exams. So I learned all of this fairly large body of music and played for exams with the Royal Academy, which also I began to pick up a lot about dance, which is something you need to know if you're a ballet accompanist. My daughter changed studios. I began playing for a lot of free classes, meaning non-syllabus classes.
Right.
I went on to play a lot with the what's now Charlotte Ballet. I think the Charlotte Ballet, which used to be North Carolina Dance Theater. Lucky enough to play a lot for Jean-Paul Budefeu, his wife, and Mark Diamond. And also I had a wonderful experience of playing for David Howard, who had a studio in New York for years where Baryshnikov and Gelsey Kirkland would take classes. So I was fortunate enough to play for him on some master classes. So.
Well, that is, that's a wealth of material. You certainly had to probably learn orchestral reductions, which are not easy to play.
I think one of the best qualities you could have as a ballet pianist is the ability to improvise. I did a lot of that because you don't have a lot of time to pick music. Now, I did have notebooks of waltzes and tangos and, slow adagio. Everything also has to be in 8-measure phrases. So if you're using, not all music is written in 8-measure phrases. So some require some doctoring to get them to fit that format. But when a teacher turns around to me, they go through all the motions, and then they turn around and they say, and 1, 2, 3. And you've already thought of a different piece, and all of a sudden you've got to play something that's quicker than what you were anticipating, something with a different beat. So all of a sudden I make it up. I'll just take what they say and go with it, and
Yep, that's what we have to do for sure. Well, Jan, it's been a delight to talk with you. I hope you will stay by. We're going to take another break, and we'll be joined with Margaret Louise on the other side. So thank you so much. It was a delight to learn more about you. I much of this I did already know, but you certainly shared some wonderful information and experiences with me. So thank you very much. We'll see you on the other side of the break. We're going to take a final break. Margaret Louise will return and chat with Jan, and there will be a special surprise. You will not want to miss this. Well, welcome back. I see that we have Margaret Louise and Jan here with us. We have another comment from David. David says, huge respect to all three. Well, thank you, David, for your artistry, teaching, and great work in the music community. So thank you for staying by with us, David. I love you, man. So I'd like to just have Margaret Louise and Jan talk a little bit, and then I'm going to spring a little surprise on you guys. So,
Oh,
Oh, wow.
so
All right, Jan, what's going on in your life these days? I know you just had a new granddaughter about, 6 weeks ago?
yes, Catherine. Just again, this is why we ended up in Chapel Hill after all this time. And so it's a joy. We keep my 3-year-old grandson, Hank, several days a week. Since the pandemic, he hasn't been in daycare. So he's a joy. He's so enthusiastic and so lively and so much fun. So life is very lively here. Thanksgiving was
sure.
very lively.
Wow.
How about you? What are you up to?
Just teaching. Since the pandemic, of course, we've all been online since the middle of March, and students are practicing more, which is wonderful. I'm attributing it, I suppose, to they can't go to soccer practice and swim team and all of that stuff. So they are indeed putting more hours into their piano. So I'm a happy camper right now.
I agree. I've had students that are making astounding leaps, and I've attributed it to the same thing. And aren't we lucky that we can continue to work from our homes and teach and not miss a beat, really provide this continuity, at least one thing constant in these kids' lives too.
Right. And that's what I find, the families are so appreciative of the fact that the music in their homes has been able to continue.
Well, and I can vouch for myself here at the Academy that the students, many of them are advancing much more since COVID than they did before. So I'm hearing the same thing. Well, the PANC Live is the focus of this show is to highlight performers, pianists, and piano teachers and piano students from the state of North Carolina. So I'd like to share with you a wonderful special guest who will join us. And this
Sarah!
How are you?
I feel great. I'm privileged to be here with you three people.
Well, it's great to see you.
Yes.
We all four have ties among ourselves, and I was thinking, that what a great surprise it would be to bring Sarah on. Sarah studied piano with Margaret Louise for how many years, Sarah?
I think 3.
Somewhere between 3 and 4, I think. Yeah.
Yes.
Sarah, can you go a little closer to your microphone? Is that possible?
I can move the microphone. Is that better?
Yeah, it just makes it a little easier to hear you. That's all. Yeah.
Okay.
Great. Thanks so much.
I can talk louder.
Please. But anyway,
Okay.
so Sarah left Charlotte, and I know she was sad to leave Margaret Louise as her teacher, but Margaret Louise said, well, you've got to, get in touch with Frank, and Sarah has been my student ever since. And how long have you been in Durham?
2.5 years.
Yeah. So we've been working together through that time. And, of course, Jan, I think you and Sarah crossed paths when you were teaching here at the Academy. So you two know each other.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, fantastic. Well, I just wanted to surprise everybody because I don't think, Margaret Louise, you've seen Sarah for a while. I know you keep contact, but as far as connecting sort of virtually, I just wanted to at least,
Thank you, Frank. That really was fun. Sarah, we got to talk more often.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
And that's one of the joys of this show is we get a chance to, get together and talk and share, our careers and our inspirations with everybody. So thank you, the three of you, for joining me today. We're running here towards the end of the show. So, I just wanted to say so long and farewell. Yes, we can attest that Sarah plays beautifully. Yes, indeed she does. Yes, everyone agrees. Carolyn is my niece. And so thank you, Carolyn, for joining us. So just wanted to bid farewell to everybody. I actually have to teach Carolyn's daughter, Abby. I always say hello to Abby at the end of every show. So it's what a delight it has been to talk to all three of you today. So for that, I will say goodbye to you guys, and you have a great afternoon. Okay.
Oh, you too. Thanks for inviting us all.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I want to thank everyone from Facebook who joined us for the third episode of PANC Live. I want to extend my deepest gratitude to Margaret Louise Norwood, Jan Herboth, and our special guest, Sarah Feldman, for joining me. If you are watching a recorded rebroadcast of this show and would like to ask Jan or Margaret Louise or even Sarah Feldman a question, then please leave your comments below. I'll be sure they receive your thoughts. Thank you again for joining us for our third show. Keep watching for future shows. We'd like to have a show every 2 weeks on Saturdays at 9 a.m. Our goal is to introduce you to the pianists, piano teachers, and piano students who live in the great Tar Heel state of North Carolina. Our next show will be on December 19th. It'll be dedicated to the North Carolina Music Teachers Association Performance Festival that will be held in March 2021. Our show on January 23rd will be a celebration of the Durham Music Teachers Association. Be sure to mark your calendars. If you know of a pianist or piano teacher or piano student in North Carolina, or if you are a pianist, piano teacher, or piano student in North Carolina and you would like to be interviewed for a future show, then just email us. Be sure to follow the Piano Academy in North Carolina on Facebook and on Instagram. I hope to see you again soon. Keep calm and keep practicing. The piano bench is large enough for everyone. Take care.